YouTube family, it's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. In today's video, we are bringing you a furniture flip where we take unwanted, unloved, thrifted finds and give them new life. So in today's furniture flip, I am bringing you some thrift store side tables that I have been picking up, and it is time to get the mass hordes of side tables done. We are breaking our sprayer out, and we are going to share our vision of what we see the finished product of these unwanted, unloved thrift stored side tables. So here's the first of the side tables. I don't know if you can tell how short this little side table is, but what a nice base on this piece. Now this one might not be a big side table, but it is nice and tall. So I just consider this a little decorative piece, maybe a little plant stand or some of your home decor, but it was too cute to pass. Now I have actually done many of this type of a side table, and they sell really well. This one is an all-around nice side table. It's just outdated and in need of some love. And the same thing as this one, somebody had glued something on the top of it. It is very shiny, but just in need of love. And I know you can see what is missing on this, but that's a nice base. So I wasn't going to leave that behind. If you still don't have the visual of how short this side table is, I don't understand, but here you go. Look it is actually 16 inches tall, not much taller than a ruler. But that was a nice thing. It had a nice base. And so Chris had some pieces and parts and some ideas of what he wanted to do with it to upgrade it so it would be the perfect height. I'm not sure if this little stand was used for a plant or it just had warped from being stored where there was moisture. But as you can see, it has a terrible bend, so the top piece is not worth anything. So Chris is just going to be cutting out a new top for this. As you see, he just cut a square to the size that the top was, and now he's just marking off with a pencil where he needs to cut the angles to replace this piece of wood. So now he's over to this table saw, and Chris has made a lot of these homemade jigs that just help make your cuts a lot easier, and that they keep the piece of wood nice and secure also. Now that he has that piece of wood cut for the replacement for this wonky top, he needs to remove the screws that are holding it in. But don't just think that the screws are the only thing holding it in. It was actually still glued, so he needed the assistance of a pry bar to get that top to come off. Isn't that the way that it always is? One side comes off really easy and one side is just a little bugger. So he's marking the outside of the base right now, so he knows where that the glue can be applied. And of course, when you're taking off, using a pry bar, one of the decorative pieces of the top did break off, but that happens. You're gluing it together anyway, boy. So why not glue that piece right back on as you're fixing the rest of it? Now he's just pre-drilling some new holes where he's going to put some new screws in, countersinking them just a little bit so that they're flush with the bottom. And then now this little stand will have a new top that's not wonky. You don't want it to look like you just plopped a piece of plywood on the top of this vintage base. So he is going around with a router bit and taking off those sharp edges of the top, just giving it a little bit of a round edge so it looks like it was one made that way, and that two that it had worn that way over time. So now it's time to make this a tall side table. I really don't know why this is so short. I guess it would be nice to sit back in a lazy boy and be able to reach something that was low, or maybe the person that owned it was a little bit on the shorter side. I don't know. It's always amazes me what you find when you're thrifting. So Chris is not going to attach those pieces of plywood on the top of this. He's actually going to remove this top and put two new pieces so that the two pieces match. So we cut the square pieces of plywood the same with the square that the previous top was. And then we had purchased these little rungs from a guy at our antique mall that turns these. I love his work and I like to shop local if I can, so I definitely like to support him, but unfortunately he does not have a website for us to link. And so they're a little bit on the tall side, so Chris is just cutting down a little bit of that so that this is what my husband at 6'4" considers a proper height side table. Now he did on these two pieces of wood, he also did the router on the outside to take away that sharp edge, so it had that weird look and it's not sharp to the touch, and that it matches, once we get it all painted, it'll match the base. So now it's time to put this together. So he is pre-drilling some holes. He's going to get all these screwed in together, and what he's doing now is just pre-drilling the holes and then making sure that he is countersinking them so that when he puts the screws in that they are flush and just a little bit deeper so you can wood fill them over. So nope, I have no idea where the top of this was. I thrifted it just as it is for a couple bucks. I knew that it would make a nice base for something. So what Chris is doing is he is unscrewing. He's releasing the screws that are holding those three legs in because they're all wonky, they're all wobbly, and they need to be tightened up and re-glued. And so what that does is it was a little piece of wood that was keeping them from moving up and down. So he's going to glue these in so they are nice and secure and tight. So now he needs to add one more piece of plywood to the top to make sure that as you see, the piece of top that he took off the other side table, he's going to be reusing for this side table. So you don't want to just put that large of a piece of wood onto just a small little round stick, basically. So what he's doing here is he cut a little piece of plywood, and now he's going to be adding a dowel so that all this will be sticking together. So he's got the dowel in the original piece. He made this little plywood piece. He's adding more glue around it. And so this way it's giving him something to screw the base into, and it's making all these pieces stay together and that they won't be wonky and they'll be nice and secure. Nope, there's still more to do before painting. Did you think that we were going to leave those plywood edges raw? No, they would just stick out like a detail. And this is another reason I absolutely love this Durham water putty, but you can do the same thing with spackle or wood filler or Bondo. But we are fans of the Durham water putty. And so what he's doing, he's mixing up a little bit of that, and he's going to be filling his screw holes or any holes that he feels need on these plywood pieces, but he's also going to go around that outer edge to take away those levels that plywood has, so it doesn't look like a piece of plywood, that it looks like one solid piece of wood. And yes, he's going to do the exact same thing with this side table also. He has a lot more of the screw holes where he had to countersink so that you don't see that screw, so it looks like one complete solid piece of wood. And he has to do the same thing. He has to go around all that edge and fill that in with the Durham water putty. That's why I absolutely love the Durham water putty. He can mix it up to the consistency that he needed to, a little bit wetter for the sides, and then, put it on. And then if he needed to smooth it out with his finger, it's cost efficient. I am so sad I hear people can't buy it in other countries, but I do absolutely love this stuff. For us, plywood is reasonably inexpensive, but as you see, plywood does not have nice sides, so it's nice to be able to fill these sides in and make it look like a nice piece of furniture. So now for this 2-tier side table, this little cute stand, it has some decoratives on it. It's crackled paint, it has the greenery, the flowers. So he's going to have to go through and sand that down as much as he can, because that is a detail. If we go to paint that crackling, that detail will show through the paint. When we go to distress it, it will not make a nice smooth finish. So does anybody have any thoughts of what they think might have been attached to this little side table? I don't know, a lamp maybe? Was it sold that way? Was it something that the person did themselves? I just thought it was a nice size side table. So for the price, most of these side tables were under $7, so very cost efficient for us to flip them. But yeah, I don't really know what was glued on here. So because this piece is so shiny, he definitely needs to take the orbital sander with some 220 sandpaper and knock that down so you know that your paint is going to adhere properly. So when I'm out thrifting, I just absolutely, if I see side tables like this, I just snag them up. Sometimes I don't necessarily look them thoroughly because you never know when you're out thrifting, especially the stores that I thrift at, you can turn around and it could be gone. And we sell side tables really quick for under the $30 price tag, and it's well worth our time. Like I said, we pick them up way under $7. Most of the time they're $2 to $5. But on this side table, when I grabbed it, I did not realize that somebody had done some kind of a spackling to give it a texture. And so, oh, poor Chris has to sand all that spackling off the side table. No, it wasn't. It was definitely not something that somebody purchased that way. It was something that somebody did. So, oh, well, you know, I may have left it behind if I would have noticed that because, like I said, every part, the legs and everything were all that spackle. So now that the Durham water putty has set up, the nice thing about it's just what it is. It is rock hard, but it does sand. And so that's what, now it is their turn to get sanded. These where he filled in the screw holes. He wants to make sure that he gets those nice and flush so you have that smooth top, and then go on the sides and get rid of all the bumpiness and cover up all that where it shows that it was a piece of plywood on the side. And then to control the side sanding a little bit more, Chris switched over to hand sanding with some 220. Sometimes that orbital sander, when you get that angle, sometimes it takes off a little more than you want it to. So sometimes for what you're doing, you just have to go back in hand sand. So I did warn you that we had quite the haul of side tables to get done. We had been building up this hoard, and now it was time that we knew we were going to be breaking out our sprayer and doing mass quantities of products to build up our inventory, and this was the perfect opportunity to get these side tables done. So we absolutely love sharing our vision with you. So if you are not already subscribed to our channel, please do so now. That just lets us know you like this kind of content and we can keep making these kind of videos. So today we're going to be using our beast.Wow sprayer, our Graco sprayer that we had purchased from Home Depot. I will link one in Amazon if any of you guys are interested. If you were as unlucky as us as going through all the Harbor Freight sprayers and the Wagner sprayers, and I don't know if it's the humidity or why we never get ours to stay running. So that's why we had purchased this one in the hopes that this one would stay working. So if you are interested in what paint we're using, we are using the same paint that we use all the time, but it will be down in my description box. So we are blessed when we built this workshop that we made a spray room with a ventilation system, and you want to have your mask on, do everything as safety first, protect your lungs, protect your well-being. So here he is, we like to flip the items upside down and get the most coverage we can on that first coat of paint going on. And I have to say, this sprayer is a beast, but wow, does it do a nice smooth paint job. And if you don't already have some type of a turntable lazy Susan system to move your items around like this, what we do is we have them on a piece of extra scrap wood, and then we put it on that turntable so we can kind of move these medium-sized items in and out. But wow, does that help being able to have it on a turntable where you can turn and get all the areas. And I think I thrifted it for a couple bucks. I think it was one for maybe a computer or a TV, but I highly suggest it. It just helps getting all those sides and helps cut your time down. So see what I meant? If we were going to do a beast of a spray job, we were going to get all these items done at once. And we actually separated these out to 3 different videos because that was a lot. That'd be a lot to explain in each video. So now Chris is using the sprayer to spray our Kills paint and primer in one, our go-to white paint. And I have to say that the sprayer does an excellent job of getting it on. And we do the same thing, flip them upside down and get that most coverage with your first spray. And then after the underneath side is nice and dry, nice and cured, it's time to flip them over and finish them off. That's why I said it's so nice to be able to flip them upside down, get that most coverage. That way you're not painting the top of them and then flipping them upside down to get the bottom of it, because what if you end up messing up the top? It just keeps that top nice and clean. So yet again, now we have all our whites done. And yep, we're not quite done with the sprayer yet, but at least we're 3/4 there. So this is why I said we were 3/4 there. We once again cleaned out all and purged the system, got it refreshed. So now we're doing some polycrylic top coat on our black pieces, because why not? We already have the sprayer out and it just does a wonderful smooth finish. We just really enjoy getting pieces out like this. We love this round robin of getting our inventory built up. That way, so if one piece sells, we can get another piece in, and then we can keep assessing what I need to thrift or what I need to find. This is just a process that works for us. I know that it may seem overwhelming, but you do what works for you. So when Chris was going to start sanding this piece to distress it, he noticed that it had some bleed through just in random spots. So he was just going to be using some of this shellac, which would stop it, seal that in, and then being able to paint a little bit more paint on it. Unfortunately, you'd have to brush it on because, of course, we've already cleaned the sprayer out. But this is shellac is a flipper's game changer. I highly suggest it if you flip furniture like I do. Depending on what paint you use, this is what works for us. So now it's on to hand sanding to distress these white pieces. So Chris just has some 220 sandpaper, and depending on how hard he pushes that sandpaper on any of the sharp edges of the pieces, any detail, that's depending on how much of, if he just presses lightly, goes over multiple times, you'll just see that black. But if he wants to press even harder and go over multiple times, you can get down to that wood. It's just what look you're looking for, and we just absolutely love to pop the details on these thrifted pieces. So for one more level of protection of our white paint, even though the Kills has a primer in it, we like to use the Varathane finishing wax. I just absolutely love the satiny smooth, and I love the smell of this product. So you just wipe on, or take a waxing brush and wipe it on, and then let it soak in a little bit, and then wipe off any excess. So actually I have all these little side tables. This little side table was the only one with any hardware. It just had a little knob. So Chris just cleaned it off, sprayed it with some Rust-Oleum paint and primer in the flat black, and sealed that paint in with some Polycrylic, and then is now replacing the little knobby back onto the drawer for this cute little side table. So after getting this little stand all painted up, I could just envision putting a little bit of something on the top of this little stand. It's not really big enough for a side table. It could be, or it could be a plant stand. It's just a nice little accent piece. And so if you are new to my channel, one of my favorite things to do is grain sack striping. For me, it's just a simple little additive that is neutral, and I think it would fit into anybody's farmhouse, anybody's primitive decor. And even if that's not your style, it would actually, I think, fit into anybody's decor. So what I'm doing here is I just use a Dollar Tree masking tape, and my first piece of tape that I laid, I found that it was center. I found that I was center, and then what I'm doing now is laying a piece of masking tape on either side, the right and the left side, and then I'll be removing that centered piece of tape because that will be where my first painted stripe goes. Then I did end up working in a little bit, putting 2 more pieces of masking tape because I just thought that stripe was way too big for this little stand. And so now I'm using Apple Barrel Multi-Use in white to paint my first stripe. And I like to use these makeup sponge applicators from the Dollar Tree. And then I like to go over multiple times. I try not to put too much paint on. I don't want to squish it underneath that tape and make an uneven line, so I do use the assistance of a blow dryer, or you can use the assistance of a heat gun, and I'll apply 3 coats doing the same procedure. And then I just also like to use that blow dryer to heat back up that sticky on that masking tape so that I don't pull off my previous paint. And this is why I love the Dollar Tree masking tape. It's thin enough, it's sticky enough, and it's thin enough I can see where my stripe is. So now I'm centering that stripe underneath this masking tape, and then that'll give me a space between my next 2, and I'm doing about the exact same stripes. I just eyeballed. I think that's another reason that I love green sack striping is it's because it's the perfectly imperfect. They don't have to be perfect. Eyeballing, if you want to measure, I do have OCD, so sometimes I do measure, but I've done enough of these that so far my eyes have not deceived me. And I'll do the exact same thing. I'll put the thin coat on and then proceed on with the next couple coats. One thing I always say on my channel, do something until you love it. Do it till you love and you would put it in your house. I just did not think that was complete, and I added 2 more stripes to the outer side of this little table. So now sorry that I did not get my camera on, but I did polycrylic over these stripes, depending on what kind of you want left behind. If I put my Waverly wax, which is what I'm doing to age these to take off that bright white of the paint to blend in the richness of this black. If I did not polycrylic these stripes, the Waverly wax would actually be taking away some of that apple barrel white paint. And so I polyacrylic of them because I wanted my stripes to stay. So now Chris is just showing you how he is going to just steel wool this piece. This piece had all these rounded edges, so there's not any crisp edge. If we try to take a hard 220 sandpaper, it would just look like it was marred up more than a distressing. So all he's doing is taking some steel wool, we usually use the 40 fine steel wool, and just opening up that polycrylic so that it will be accepting the antiquing wax that we'll be using on it. But for the rest of the black pieces, he did the exact same procedure that he had done on the white, distressing the hard edges, so when he goes to wax them, that it will show off that distressing with the Waverly wax. So now here he is using the Waverly antiquing wax, and we just apply it using a piece of drop cloth. I reupholster and do a lot of things with drop cloth, and so I save all the pieces so we can use them for doing things like this, because I don't wash them, we just throw the extra piece away. So now that's all he's doing, is he's just wiping that Waverly wax on, and then he'll wipe off any excess. So I absolutely love how this little stand turned out. I love that I gave it the little detail, the little simple of the grain sack stripe, because in a way, I thought if I put some kind of a stencil on top of it and you stuck a plant or some books, you wouldn't even get to see the beauty of that. But I just loved the side pieces of this table were just gorgeous. So I just had to snag it up and not leave it behind. In what was a tired, unwanted, outdated little side table, I just absolutely love. Plant stand, books for your side table for your bed. There's just so many opportunities, and just keeping it that simple white, and then distressing, showing off all of those details. I just absolutely love these types of little side tables. And I definitely was happy that that spackling sanded off, and now it's just, I know I am a simple person. I don't do a lot of textures and a lot of designs. I just like simple pieces, and then you can add whatever decor you want to make them pop. But this is now just a little simple side table. It can go in a living room, it can go in a bedroom, just by your window with some books for reading. And I just love when I thrift odd and ends, and then Chris comes up with something to put them together and make them a workable piece now that they are painted together, kind of like Frankenstein pieces that he has done in the past. Now it is a nice side table, and I just love that detail on that base is nice and sturdy now. But this is a nice size side table. But do you see why it was easier for him to make two new top pieces than trying to match up with the old one, especially since it was a different type of material? This is now the height that it should be, I think, for a side table. But I absolutely love that he left it in black. And I love the detailing of those little spindles, and they definitely match that pretty base. Those bun feet on that base definitely got me. And what seemed like it was not going to be needy at all, of course, when it's a thrifted item, yep, we had to shellac it. It had some yellowing going through that white paint. This is just a nice side table that was just outdated, outloved, just needed a little bit of paint to give it new life. But now it is a nice side table for anyone to use. And all I can think is that must have been a lamp that was attached to the top of this side table. But I love that we just kept it black, just kept it simple. Sometimes simple is okay. You can add whatever decor you want, and it will make your decor pop. Don't forget to tell me which one was your favorite. Would you have envisioned what we did, or would you have left them behind? So I thank you so much for watching today's video, and have I inspired you in any way to look at thrift store side tables, look at those unwanted, unloved, outdated side tables, and have I given you the vision to see them in a different way? So even if you're not a reseller like us, maybe you just want to do it for yourself. Maybe you have some tucked away that you have like, oh yeah, maybe I could do that to this one. And color choice, remember there is a rainbow of colors out there. Just because we do black and white does not mean that that is what you have to stick to. And I want to thank you if you are part of my YouTube family already. That has helped me grow my channel just by you watching our videos, making a kind comment, and giving us a like. Lets YouTube know that you like this kind of content, and they will keep recommending us. And if you are new to my channel, just hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video.